Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has delivered a sharp rebuke to Irish President Michael D. Higgins following comments in which Higgins accused Israel of violating the sovereignty of three neighboring countries, Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. The controversy has quickly escalated, bringing into sharp focus the enduring tensions between Israel and Ireland over Middle East policies. Higgins' remarks, made during a public appearance, criticized Israel's military actions as reckless violations of international law, while Sa'ar lambasted what he called a troubling trend in Ireland to delegitimize Zionism and Israel's right to self-defense. Higgins described Israeli airstrikes and military operations as egregious actions that disregard the sovereignty of neighboring states and exacerbate instability across the region. He specifically highlighted recent Israeli strikes in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria, characterizing them as part of a broader pattern of impunity that undermines diplomatic efforts to achieve peace. Higgins called on the international community, particularly European nations, to hold Israel accountable and re-evaluate their stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In response, Sa'ar held a press conference in Jerusalem where he dismissed Higgins' comments as both ill-informed and biased. He argued that Israel's actions are defensive measures taken in response to mounting threats from Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iranian proxies operating in Syria. The Irish president's remarks are deeply disappointing and reflect a one-sided view of a complex situation, Sa'ar stated. Israel acts to protect its citizens from constant and existential threats. Any portrayal of these actions as reckless violations of sovereignty ignores the reality of the threats we face. The foreign minister also took the opportunity to criticize Ireland's broader stance toward Israel, accusing Irish leaders of fostering an environment where anti-Zionist sentiment is not only tolerated but encouraged. Sa'ar expressed concern over the use of the terms Zionism and Zionist in Irish political discourse, suggesting they are increasingly deployed as derogatory labels rather than as descriptors of Israel's national identity and right to exist. Zionism is the movement for the liberation and self-determination of the Jewish people, Sa'ar emphasized. Yet, in Ireland, it has been turned into a dirty word, weaponized against Israel in a way that no other democratic state would accept. This diplomatic clash highlights a long-standing divide between the two nations. Ireland has consistently been one of Israel's most vocal critics within the European Union, frequently condemning Israeli policies in Palestinian territories and advocating for stronger measures to address what it sees as human rights violations. Dublin was one of the first European capitals to officially recognize Palestinian statehood and has supported numerous resolutions critical of Israeli settlement expansion and military operations. These positions have earned Ireland praise from pro-Palestinian advocates but have also strained its relationship with Israel. The latest exchange comes amid heightened tensions in the Middle East. Israeli forces are engaged in a large-scale military operation in Gaza following a deadly escalation with Hamas. Simultaneously, tensions are flaring on Israel's northern border, where Hezbollah has intensified its military activities in southern Lebanon. In Syria, Israel has conducted numerous airstrikes targeting what it claims are Iranian weapons shipments and military infrastructure. These actions have drawn international scrutiny, with critics accusing Israel of exacerbating instability and increasing the risk of broader regional conflict. Higgins' remarks have resonated with many human rights organizations and pro-Palestinian groups, who view Israel's actions as disproportionate and destructive. They argue that military operations in densely populated areas like Gaza often result in significant civilian casualties and widespread destruction of infrastructure, further deepening the humanitarian crisis. In Lebanon and Syria, critics contend that Israeli strikes risk escalating conflicts and destabilizing already fragile political situations. Sa'ar, however, framed these criticisms as part of a broader double standard applied to Israel. He pointed to the role of Iran and its proxies in fomenting violence across the region, arguing that Israel's actions are a necessary response to these threats. While the world focuses on condemning Israel, it turns a blind eye to the actions of terror organizations and their sponsors, Sa'ar said. The reality is that Iran and its proxies are the primary destabilizing forces in the Middle East. Israel acts to counter their aggression and to ensure the safety of its citizens. The foreign minister also expressed frustration with what he perceives as a lack of acknowledgement for Israel's efforts to minimize civilian harm during its military operations. He cited measures such as early warning systems, evacuation notices, and targeted strikes aimed at reducing collateral damage. No other country facing similar threats would exercise the level of restraint that Israel does, Sayar asserted. Yet, we are held to an impossible standard, and our right to self-defense is continually questioned. In Ireland, Higgins' comments have sparked a mixed reaction. While many praised his willingness to speak out against what they see as injustices in the region, others warned that such remarks could strain diplomatic relations with Israel and complicate Ireland's ability to act as a neutral mediator in international conflicts. The Irish government has yet to issue an official statement clarifying whether Higgins' remarks reflect its official policy, but the incident has reignited debate over Ireland's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Analysts suggest that the row between Sa'ar and Higgins is symptomatic of a deeper ideological divide that is unlikely to be bridged anytime soon. Ireland sees itself as a champion of human rights and the oppressed, and in this narrative, the Palestinians occupy center stage, said Dr. Alon Ben-David, an expert on Israeli-European relations. For Israel, Ireland's criticism often feels one-sided and ignores the complexities of the security challenges Israel faces. The timing of the diplomatic spat is significant, as it comes at a moment of intensified violence and shifting dynamics in the region. The ongoing conflict in Gaza has already claimed thousands of lives, while the situation on Israel's northern border with Lebanon remains volatile. Meanwhile, the Syrian conflict continues to serve as a flashpoint for regional and international tensions, with Iran and Russia supporting the Assad regime and Israel actively targeting what it sees as threats to its security. For Israel, the exchange with Ireland underscores the challenges of gaining international understanding for its actions in a world that is often polarized on Middle East issues. For Ireland, it highlights the difficulties of balancing moral advocacy with pragmatic diplomacy.